Well, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, hello. Oh, it's good to see you. We've got people coming in from all over the place. Anita, what time is it there in India?
Hi, Judy. Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
Anita.
It's
What time
8 in
is
the
it?
evening. 8 in the evening.
Okay,
Not
it's
too.
not too bad. Wonderful. Welcome everybody. All right, more folks are coming in, but I want to welcome you to the May 12th, 2022 Edgewalker Cafe. And we have a very special guest today and a wonderful topic. And I'm really looking forward to getting started in just a moment. We're going to let a few more folks come in. And as we're creating the sacred space that they join us in, our space of oneness, I would like to read a quote from Albert Einstein that talks about why oneness is so important, why non-dual consciousness is so important. Albert Einstein writes, and I ask you if you want to center for a moment and just be in the space of contemplation about his words. He writes, "A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts, and feelings as separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and our affection for a few persons nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from the prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. The true value of a human being is determined primarily by the measure and the sense in which they have obtained liberation from the self. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if humanity is to survive." So take a moment just to breathe that in and to be together with those around the world who are here and who are not here, but there is no here. Right, Anil? Anil, there's no here. And there's
There's
no
no here, there's no me.
and there is no me.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm Judy Neal. I'm the founder of Edgewalkers International, and I welcome you here today to be with my dear friend and colleague and fellow Edgewalker facilitator, Peggy O'Neal. And before I introduce Peggy, I also want to highlight that people that are with us that are also Edgewalker facilitators. Patricia Campanile, she's in her beach house in Milford, Connecticut, where I wrote part of Edgewalkers. And up, thank you, Patricia, for everything. And upstairs in this very same house from me is my beloved husband, Ellis Ralph, who is also a certified Edgewalker facilitator. So let me now introduce Peggy O'Neal, whom I met when I was working at the University of Arkansas, and I was running the Tyson Center for Faith and Spirituality in the Workplace. And one day this woman walks into my office and says, "I want to work with you." I want to know what you're doing and I want to work with you. And that began a lifelong friendship and collaboration around work having to do with spirituality in the workplace and spirituality in our lives. Peggy has an incredible background in terms of being trained as a lawyer, having worked with the Clinton when he was a governor of Arkansas, and has worked with many, many different kinds of clients, individually and organizationally, mostly organizationally, um, creating incredible transformation for them. And more than anything, she is a seeker. She asks deep questions. She devotes her life to her own development so that she can be of service to others. So Peggy, welcome. I am so excited about this conversation with you today. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited about this too. In 2007, I'd been coaching for about 20 years, and I'd practiced law for about 12, as you referred to, and had this great practice, made good money, great clients, lived in beautiful Healdsburg, California, but something was missing. And so in 2007, I shut down my business. I said to myself, I can't keep doing business as usual. If I'm coaching people to help them live the lives and have the businesses that they really want, and telling them I can do that, but I'm not experiencing that, then I've got to stop. So in 2007, shut my business down and packed up everything and moved it to Arkansas, where my mom was living. And I was also, because I'd also always been in the question of thinking that surely there's a way we can all get along. That'd been one of my seeking paths my whole life. Can't we all get along? And then because I was feeling this dissatisfaction, I also remembered, I'm not religious, but I remembered the thought that God knows what's really possible for us. I thought, okay, I'm going to surrender to that and see where this all takes me. So like I said, I was wound up living with my mom for a little bit, but thank heavens, over the years that ensued, I had job offers. So I was in Singapore for a while. I got here to the Dallas area because of job offers. Clients kept finding me, but again, I still didn't feel like I could market my services in integrity until I'd resolved what was this missing piece for me. So in 2018, so as you can hear, it was quite a long journey, 2007, 2018. Finally, I came across a book by Rupert Spira called Being Aware of Being Aware. And I read that book and instantly knew this is it. This is what has been missing from my life. And what was being aware of being aware? Well, we're going to talk more about that in a little bit when we talk about the direct path, but it's knowing our essential nature, knowing in all our being that who we are is one being. We are one, no separation, one with everything and everyone. Now, we've been conditioned to believe that we're separate, that I'm over here, you're over there. But in reality, there actually is no separation. And also, the book, Being Aware, it's non-dual teachings, again, that we're one being, and that we already are our essential nature. And I think that was one of the big keys for me. Oh, I already am that. I don't have to do something to know that and to be that and to live that. So once I really, I got it from the get-go that, oh, we're one being, and the essential and our essential nature of this one being is actually love and peace and happiness. And by happiness, I mean that kind of contentment, that real contentment. So love, peace, happiness, freedom, fulfillment, that's my essential nature. Then I set about embodying it. It wasn't going to be a concept for me. I was going to embody this knowing, because I also knew in this process that this was about me sharing this work in the world, that this was now going to become the foundation of all the work that I did. And it also was clear to me that one of the reasons we have so much struggle in the world, in our own lives, which was one of my struggles, but also in the world, is because we believe we're separate. That's, we've been conditioned to believe that we're separate, and that is the foundation of our struggles. If we knew who we truly are, then everything would be different. Relationships, organizations, communities, our relationship with nature, everything would be different. Now, as I was embodying this, one of the issues that I was trying to reconcile, because I did lots of research, lots of what we do to embody. So to embody, part of embodying non-dual teachings is to release what's out of alignment with our essential nature. So we don't have to add anything. It's about releasing what's out of alignment with our essential nature. So that was my focus. But in all that research and applying myself, one of the questions that I couldn't resolve is that consciousness, our essential nature, consciousness, other names for that are awareness, source, spirit, divine wisdom, divine nature, infinite wisdom, and the religious name is also God's infinite being. That's all those names. I'm sure you have a name that really fits for you: spirit, source, oneness, one being. That who we essentially are, our consciousness, never changes, never evolves, can't change or evolve. How could it? Because it's already everything that's ever been, ever will be, ever could be. As y'all were talking about earlier, there's only now. It's everything. So it can't. And so what was confusing was that the word consciousness is also used to say, let's evolve our consciousness, evolve human consciousness, develop human consciousness. And so that wasn't, something was missing there. They weren't coming together. So I finally realized that the consciousness that we are, and today I'll also probably use the word awareness occasionally, that the consciousness we are never changes, doesn't evolve, doesn't develop, it can't, it already is everything. And our human consciousness does evolve, and we want to evolve our human consciousness and develop our human consciousness. So what's happened is that we've used the same word for two different things. Just like the word bat, we use the word bat for a baseball implement and for the mammal bat. And there's no confusion there. We know exactly what we mean when we say bat when we're referring to either of those. And I think the challenge has been, at least it was for me, with consciousness is they're so similar. Developing human consciousness and the consciousness we are seem to be similar, and so they get collapsed. So that's one of the distinctions that really helped me to make that distinction and to understand, again, my essential nature is already whole and complete, and who I essentially am doesn't need to be developed. And yes, we still develop our human consciousness. Let's see. So we do have the path of human development, and now I'm going to switch to another path, which is the path that starts out usually by seeking, like minded. We're seeking, we seek, what is it we seek? We seek happiness, fulfillment, peace, love. And we've been conditioned to think that we'll find that happiness and fulfillment and peace in objects or relationships, activities, substances, like, oh, I'll have a glass of wine tonight, that'll make me feel better. Or I really want to be in love, I'm going to go find a relationship. And so we've been conditioned to believe that's where we'll experience the love and the peace that we are. And yet it already is who we are. But we get on that path of seeking, and that seeking, that longing for love and peace and happiness is actually an invitation to come back to ourselves. That longing, any longing or seeking that we're pursuing is that invitation, to come back to the love and the peace and the happiness and fulfillment that I already am. And so there are two sorts of paths that people follow once they're realizing, I want to know my essential nature. One is, I called it the developmental path, I believe in the notes before this, but I realize that's really an incorrect wording. It should be progressive path. So you might be familiar with the progressive path that people talk about when they want to know their essential nature. And that's the path where, you meditate for 50 years on a meditation cushion, and you have teachers and you have practices and exercises. And the idea behind that approach to knowing our essential nature is that we're purifying ourselves with these practices and meditations, and then the teachers help us through that. So that is one way. There's nothing wrong with either path, that one or this one, the direct path. The direct path. And Rupert Spira says we're in the era of the direct path. And what's the direct path? Is to know our essential nature right now. We can know it directly right now. Me, I'm going for the direct path. If I can know it right now, instead of doing all these things progressively, I'm going to know it now. So that's what I began pursuing, is this direct path, which there's no pursuit to it, as we'll look at right now. So you don't have to answer this except to yourself. So here's what I mean by direct path. If right now I asked you to take a step toward yourself, what would you do? Yeah, there's no place to go, right? You can't go anywhere to take a step towards yourself. That's the direct path. We can't go anywhere to know who we truly are. We can remove the seeming veils. I call them veils. Others call them veils as well. The veils that seem to keep us separate from ourselves, separate with other people and other things and animals and so on, but they're actually veils. So the direct path, we can be there right now. Now we miss that. We miss the knowing of our essential nature in our day-to-day life because we get so focused and distracted on activities, all the things we have to do in our phones, our activities, our relationships. We get pulled into our relationships and again, objects and substances, and we're conditioned and marketed to like that. And so we get pulled away from our essential nature by focusing on all of this. And there's nothing wrong with that, but what we want to do is to let our essential nature inform all of that, and our essential nature be our main focus. And we're going to get to that now. So when we focus on objects, and that includes thoughts and emotions, when we focus on objects and activities, relationships outside of us, thoughts and emotions as well, that's when we get pulled away from our essential nature. So here in a moment, we're all going to trace back ourselves to our essential nature, our being, our happiness, the direct path, the one where we go within. This isn't perfect language because there's nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to move to. But in the beginning, as we explore this, one way to talk about it is that we turn our mind back around toward itself. So that's what we're going to do now. It's also called the inward facing path. So if you're comfortable right now, I invite you to close your eyes. If that's not comfortable for you to do, if you would focus on a spot, say 6 to 8 feet in front of you, or a spot on the wall, and soften your eyes. But if you're willing to, just close your eyes right now, and we're going to take the direct path, which is no path actually, to know our essential nature. So as you close your eyes, what do you observe? You might notice some thoughts, feelings, emotions. You might notice some sensations like your the pressure of your buttocks on your chair, or your back on your chair. You might notice you're hearing me. You hear me. And a few minutes ago or a minute ago, you saw me. So we were hearing something, seeing something. You might notice some smells, maybe even a taste. And notice that you're aware of all of that. And stay with that awareness. Put your attention there on the awareness. And when you notice thoughts, emotions, sensations trying to get your attention, come back to this awareness. Just allow them to be there and return to the awareness. And notice now that you're aware of this awareness. You know that you're aware, or you could not have known you were aware. You can ask yourself, am I aware that I'm aware? And the question, am I aware, is a thought, and your mind will want to find an answer, and it may get to a yes. But between that question and the answer that your mind wants to give, there's a space, there's a knowing, an intuition, something between the question and the answer. And that space is consciousness, awareness. The knowing that you are aware. And go back to that space, that knowing, the awareness I'm speaking, being aware that I'm speaking now, that sort of awareness, but sink back into the awareness. And what do you experience in that knowing of awareness? It's going to be very subtle, very slight. Do you notice any edges to this awareness? You might experience the vastness, the openness of this awareness. And again, if thoughts and emotions try to come forward, just return to this awareness. You might be experiencing some sort of peace or happiness. Again, it's going to be very subtle. And if you've experienced it at all in the last few minutes, you've touched eternity. And your whole world, your whole being rather, has changed. You may not realize it, but it has. So this awareness, also known as peace and happiness, it's available to us all. It's always within us. All great religious and spiritual traditions indicate this in one way or the other, and yet most of the time it's obscured by our objective experience, including thinking and emotions. So again, allow the experience of being aware to come into the foreground, and allow your thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and sensations to recede. Our natural state is this effortless being. Over time, as we keep returning to what is always there, the beliefs that keep us sensing separation leave. And we understand and experience the sharing of our being. What we're doing now is also called self-inquiry, and as we investigate our true nature, we experience the peace and the happiness that we are. This space of awareness that you're experiencing now is the same when you were 5, 17, 35, 50. That awareness never changes. It's always there. And that awareness is what everyone experiences. And everyone is. That's the essential nature of everyone and everything. That's our non-dual nature. There's no separation. All there is consciousness or awareness. Everything arises out of consciousness, is made of consciousness, and any seeming appearance is an appearance of consciousness. Let's go back to awareness. Another way to think about this is the ocean. Ocean is one being, one body, and there are waves that arise out of the ocean, and they all have a form and an appearance. They're all different, all unique. And if we only saw the tips of the waves, if that was the perspective from which we were observing, if we only saw the tips of the waves, they would seem separate. One over there, separate and different. But if we step back and have a broader perspective and experience, we see, oh, those tips of the waves go all the way down to the ocean. There's no separation. There's seeming appearances of separation, but there's no actual separation. Everything arises out of, is made of the same stuff, if you will, as we all are, consciousness. And as we continue to return to our essential nature and recognize that, oh, everyone, if they're invited to be aware, is aware just as I am and knows this space of awareness. It's the knowing of awareness. It's always present in all of us and is the same in all of us because it is us. And as we know this and embody this, so by knowing, I mean living and being, as we know our name, know how to tie our shoes, it's not a concept, but as we know this and live this, then we can actually create a world where we treat each other more as one being. I think we're all touched by John Lennon's words, and we can all live as one because we know in our hearts, that's our longing, that's our invitation to return to the one being that we are. And that knowing changes everything. How we see each other, how we relate to nature. And when you're ready, you can slowly and gently open your eyes. And as we know this one being that we are, we start with the direct path as we just did and experience the awareness that we are. And if you didn't today or think you didn't today, all you have to do is go back and ask those questions. Am I aware? Am I aware that I'm aware? And sink into that knowing of awareness. That's our essential nature. It's always there. We've just covered it over with our focus on external objects, relationships, activities. It's always there. And as we know that, then moving forward to live that, we remove what's out of alignment. We work with our emotions and thoughts and activities and relationships and bring all of that into alignment with our essential nature. We just focus our thoughts, our feelings, our activities, relationships, and align all of that with our essential nature of this one being: love, peace, happiness, fulfillment, freedom that we all are. So thank you. So Judy, you want to open it for Q&A or small groups? What would you like to do now?
Let's
You're
see.
welcome, Chakri.
Thank you. I think what I'd like to do is, yeah, let's open it up for questions, and I'd like to begin. And thank you so much for that, Peggy. It's actually kind of, an interesting challenge to come back into my mind, to go from this expansive place to just thought. And maybe I don't need to. Maybe that's over time part of the
There you
practice.
go.
Thank you. I was reflecting that over the span of humanity, there's always been people who naturally are aware that they're aware. And we call them shamans and priests and nuns and various religious figures over time. They've served an important role. I also talk about them as edgewalkers. And I think I'm wondering how you see whether this time is just like any other time, and there's certain people who are aware they're aware, just like they've always been, or is there something shifting where, say, a greater percentage of humanity is waking up? What do you see or sense?
A greater, much greater humanity is waking up and sensing. And I think this distinction that I made about developing human consciousness and knowing the consciousness we are is partly key to that, because if I keep developing human consciousness, then I can still act in a way of believing I'm separate, and I've got to evolve someday to be one instead of the consciousness that we are. But yeah, no, I think, as we know, a lot of institutions, things are falling apart right now, and yet at the same time, there are thousands of people attending trainings, workshops, retreats about these non-dual teachings. Whether they're all living it or not, I don't know, but a lot of people are curious about this, and the direct path, as Rupert Spira said, this is the era of the direct path. But I think in the past, yeah, it was just, an elite few people had access to this. Now we all do, and so now I think we're in exciting times, beautiful times to be able to take this on and live it now. I mean, yes, there's no reason we can't live this immediately, as you just experienced, and it's just a matter of acting consistently with that. I think I answered your question. This is a different time because we have access to it. I mean, there are videos all over the internet, lots of books, lots of things. So the regular everyday person has access to this, and you don't have to be a special person. That's what Jesus tried to teach us too. Again, I'm not religious, but Jesus tried to tell us this over and over. You are just like me. You are me. So yes,
Yeah.
well, thank you for that question. That's great.
Thank you. That gives great hope. Anil has his hand up.
Peggy,
Anil.
Marilyn Schrum asked, she said, some suggest that consciousness itself is evolving through us. How does Peggy feel about this idea? How do you see that, Peggy? From Marilyn.
Yes, so consciousness itself doesn't evolve. Consciousness expresses through us, and consciousness will express through us. If we believe we're separate, consciousness will express through us aligned with the belief in separation.
Right.
If we believe we're one, and by believe I don't mean conceptually, that we're actually like I'm aligning my life with this. If we believe that we are one consciousness, one being, then consciousness will express and help us express that way in life. But consciousness doesn't evolve, so consciousness doesn't evolve through us. Now, human consciousness does evolve and develop, but those are two separate things. And human consciousness, yeah, does develop through us. Consciousness, awareness, God's infinite being, no, that doesn't evolve through. It's already everything. So yeah.
And also Stacy has a question. Stacy.
And Chakri has his hand up too as well.
Yeah, Stacy has a question about we all have a dark night of the soul. How does Peggy, do you have any practices that could support someone in going through the dark night of the soul, or engaging in that or not?
Yeah, let's see. So a short answer to that. So one of the things about the direct path that I also love is that we don't engage in practices in the direct path. So the first thing would be why not do practices? Because practices implies there's somewhere to get to. Right. I have to do something to get there. Direct path is probably the experience, or most of the experience. It's right there. I'm already that. So, but yes, because especially if you're just starting this, there might be some things you want to take on. At first, they might feel like practices, but you can relate to them this way. Like if I'd been living my whole life with a tight fist and thought, oh, this is how life is. And then someone pointed out, wait, you don't have to have that tight fist. And if I start opening it, then it's going to feel maybe like a practice or an exercise. I'm having to do something. So, but with the dark, so first, that's a way to relate to practices is you want to make sure you're inspired to do whatever it is. But the first thing would be to spend more time in this space. I mean, it's so simple. It's right there. But the more we spend time there, and as we spend time there, we can also listen. I call it listen, but to sense into what does consciousness want next from me. I heard someone the other day said that life really is kind of hot and cold. Am I getting colder or hotter in living my life in alignment with who I truly am? So that would be one way. And then let's see. I'm not an expert on Dark Night of the Soul, so you can let me know if that was supportive, or if you have, if you want something else, I'll think about that.
And then Ari has a comment or a question.
Anil.
Anil, I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. I have my glasses on. Sorry about that.
Okay. So thank you for a beautiful talk, Peggy, and thank you, Judy, for organizing this. I think I'm at the Maharishi International University. We're home of consciousness-based education. We've been learning this for a long time. We practice it in every way we teach at school. My first comment was, I think, to build on Judy's word of hope. I think when a practicing lawyer can return to oneness, there's a lot of hope in the world. And also, Judy, to your question, your comment about is it a special time? I think I'm seeing more and more sort of as I look around building a coalition of people around consciousness, oneness, world peace. There's many groups using different techniques. So Peggy, the technique you use, a direct path, is not something we use. We use transcendental meditation to establish ourselves with that oneness. We use all the right things, sort of establishing ourselves into that oneness. We do it once, that's not enough. I say, like, you wash up all this connection with the objects, etc., every day, just like we take a shower every day. And one of the things you mentioned, I would just amplify, which is where does consciousness reside in some ways? So Maharishi said, like, the consciousness is in the gap between the word and the next word. You called it the question and the answer, but I think what you could say is between a word and the next one, sort of the vibration dies, and when it comes back up, that's where the sort of consciousness lies. That's where the transformation occurs. So
I
what you're
agree with you.
suggesting is exactly the sort of same Vedic
Oh,
philosophy.
beautiful.
Techniques can be different, so it's such a joy to hear you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for elaborating. And then if I could elaborate on what you said about the space between that we can notice it and then try to stay there longer, create that a little more space between thoughts first by noticing it and then coming back to it. I'm assuming that's part of what you're doing is you teach people that. But anyway, so thank you for that. Yes, I'm very excited for what you're doing and how prolific you're making this. It's wonderful.
And I'd like to add that O'Neal and Maharishi University of Management also is the repository for some of the very best research on this in the world, particularly as it applies to business, which is a high leverage for changing consciousness in the world. So please, be in touch with O'Neal, and if you have any questions about the research aspect of this. And they also run an annual conference on consciousness that O'Neal organizes. So we're real honored to have you here, O'Neal.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shakri, I see you have a comment or question.
Yeah, no, Peggy, thank you so much. Judy's seen me on this path the last year or so, and I didn't get to tell her about my Vipassana the last 20 days. And yeah, I think many of these, I started doing TM in 83, and then I went to one technique or the other, and now I kind of fallen into the lap of Vipassana, and it so resonates. And I'm just glad that what I'm hearing from you is a different way of saying the same thing, and it's beautiful. I mean, I just love listening to you. And the inward meditation was phenomenal. Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
So, Peggy, there's a question. I don't know if you could see in the chat from Lauren about, she's curious why you keep reiterating that it's not religious when most, even different spiritual paths, which are in religions, whether it's Buddhism or whatever. Anyway, you should see the question. She's wondering why you would not refer to this as religion or calling yourself religious.
Yeah, well, first, because I don't practice any religion, and I didn't want somebody to think that I was raised Christian, but I don't practice religion. So because I don't want to separate, I don't want to separate people out, like hearing it like, oh, she's talking about God. That's not relevant to me. But I like to use the word God resonates for me, but it might not for other people. Like I have some clients that don't say God around me. So we say source or spirit or consciousness, awareness, all names for the same thing. Also, what I'm talking about here is actually reality,
Right.
not spirituality. So yes, all great wisdom traditions that have also been religious say the same thing, but they're really trying to share reality with us. Scientists cannot find matter. We live in a culture where we think there's matter. Science can't find it. So what I'm talking about here is actually reality, not spirituality. If you look up the definition of spirituality, I just wrote an article about this week. If you look up the definition of spirituality, it says that spirituality relates to like source, and maybe not source, but anyway, source and spirit or God, separate from matter.
Right.
And what I'm talking about is there's no separation. We actually are one ocean, one field, one, and we think we see all these objects. I'm getting a little off of the exact topic, but what we see are, we perceive something out there, which is real. There's something out there. It's just not what we think it is. And in reality, we're all connected, not even interconnected. I started to use the word connect. We're not even connected, because connection implies two things coming together. We're one. There's no separate. Just like if you look on the screen right now, if you see a bunch of faces here, if you run your finger across the screen, you cannot feel any separation.
Mhm.
So life is just like that. We focus a lot on the people on the screen or the drama or the actors, but if we step back and look, we go, oh, wait, there's only one screen, and all those people are appearances on the screen. And that's really what's happening with us. We're all appearances of consciousness. So that's why I hope that answer was helpful. But it's actually reality that we're talking about here. I mean, scientists and wisdom teachers, non-dual teachers are all saying the exact same thing. It's reality.
Okay, thank you. This looks like Tom Cullum. Tom, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, no, question. Thank you, Peggy, for this really interesting presentation. I'm curious how your understanding of oneness has changed your life and what challenges it's presented you.
Well, as I said, once I read that book, Being Aware, and it just shifted everything, because all of a sudden, the religious teachings, everything all of a sudden made sense. Oh, that's what they're trying to say. Because once I shifted to, like, we all are drops in the ocean, so to speak, but we're not even drops in the ocean. We are a drop that we can't separate ourselves out. So once I started taking that on, and of course, at first it's very challenging because it does feel like everything's separate, but I started engaging in ways to, like, for example, you can ask yourself right now, okay, I hear Peggy, but where is my experience of hearing Peggy? Where's my experience of seeing Peggy? And if we go into that inquiry, because we've been conditioned to think I hear her coming out of the computer or I see her over there, but if we look at our experience, oh wait, I experience her here. Anyway, I get a little off trying to explain, but I started really engaging with life that way. I mean, I took it on like, okay, this is what life really is. So I want to live in reality, not in my conditioned societal training of what life is, what reality is supposed to be. So it changed everything in an instant. But the challenges are, yes, to we'll do the emotional work that starts releasing the emotions that are out of alignment, to change my thinking about people, changing relationships, but not changing relationships, it's changing my relationship with relationships. And because it's all over here, you know, if I'm being, if I'm getting triggered by somebody else, it's my trigger. And so, I mean, any of you've done shadow work, that sort of thing, you're familiar with those sorts of concepts, but it's in a different place. It's like, so it's not even really, to me, it's not even really shadow work at that point, because that implies there's a separate person. So it's about coming back to me, and so it has to be something in my emotion. I must not be, I mean, in my being, I'm not established in my essential nature because I'm getting triggered. So I want to come back and establish myself in my essential nature. So it's been very freeing. It's been freeing, enlivening, exciting. It's such a great journey. And yes, the challenges are to keep doing, you know, keep coming back to working with emotions, keep coming back to my essential nature, to the thoughts, our thoughts. In my experience, our thoughts are like almost addictive. You know, our thoughts go, you need to worry about this. You need to think about it. Wait, no, that's my finite, separate self trying to tell me what to do. No, I'm going to come back to myself, and let that inform what's next for me. So, and then part of it is, inviting more people into this conversation. Part of the challenge, because people do tend to think, oh, that's spirituality she's talking about instead of reality. No, this isn't spiritual. It's your life, and it's so hard for people because we're so conditioned to believe in separation. It's challenging to sometimes to have these conversations. This is a great group to talk to. They're really open to this. Anyway, does that answer your question, or did you have something more specific? I mean that was specific, but I mean something more you were looking for.
No, that's what I was looking for. I just, I wanted to know how it's affected you in your life. Yeah.
But
And
again, in that moment, everything changed. I mean, because I finally understood these wisdom traditions. So, for example, Ramana Maharshi is a guru who one time was asked, "How do we treat others?" And he said, "There are no others."
Yeah.
And then one of my clients said, "Oh, I'm always talking to myself." And so those sorts of things 6 years ago, well, what does that mean? There are no others. It would not have made any sense. Nice idea. It wouldn't have made sense. But then once I understood non-duality, it's like, yeah, there are no others. That person over there is my lung. That person over there is my little finger. That dog over there is my heart. So but it's reconditioning my mind and my thinking and my body and my emotions. So
we're getting
we
near
need to
the end of our time, and
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thank you,
Appreciate
Tom.
that.
I'm glad you're here, and I'm wondering if Arvind could act a very short question, and Peggy, you could give a short answer, because I'd
Okay.
like to share some things that you've got coming up, and we've got a little more other things to do.
Okay, I'll thank you. I'll try to be very brief. Peggy, thank you so much for this presentation and the Q&A. Unfortunately, I joined a little late.
Okay.
So I've been studying and practicing Vedic philosophy, Vedanta, for more than 30 years. I started the Mindfulness Society, motivated by that, and part of the work being done by Chinmay Mission. So some of the things you're saying are directly what we would study in the Upanishad. So I'd like to share with you a very powerful metaphor, which I found useful to convey some of these concepts, because they're very abstract and kind of difficult to relate to. So if we take a bucket of water and place it under the midday sun, take it outside and place it under the midday sun, we'll see the reflected sun in the water. So there are four items here. It is the sun in the sky, the bright sun in the sky. Then there's a bucket itself, then the water, and then the reflected sun. So the sun in the sky is the pure consciousness. Upanishad, it's called as Brahman. Then the bucket is corresponds to the physical body or the gross body, Sthula Sharira. And then the mind is the water corresponds to the mind, which is also the subtle body. And the reflected sun in the water is the reflected consciousness, which is the jiva at the individual level. Now we can have 10 buckets, 100 buckets, different shapes and forms of the bucket itself, and different qualities of the water reflecting the sun. So as the quality of the water changes, the quality of the reflection is going to change. So there are so many jivas. So this is a much more elaborate thing. I realize, Judy, we don't have time, but this is something that I continue to reflect on, throughout my journey, and it is also a very useful metaphor for us to share. So.
Thank you. The only distinction I would make, I think, is that it's all consciousness. Everything that you described, it's all conscious, one being. It all arises out of the same being, different forms, different appearances, but everything, sun, the water, the reflections, everything is consciousness. That would be but it's a wonderful metaphor for trying to help people relate to these matters. Yes, thank you.
Peggy, thank you so much. And I'd love for you to share the program that you have coming up, because I can sense so much energy here and people want to go into these conversations more deeply with you. How can they do that? The program, your website, your email, what would you like to share with people?
I am ready with that. So there is my, yeah, there we go. There's my there's my email and my website. And yes, so I have this great program coming up. It's free. It's May 31 through June the 4th, an hour a day, and replays are available if you can't attend. It's 1 hour. I mean, it's at 1 o'clock Eastern, May 1 through June the 4th, replays available, and it's Direct Path to Happiness. So we explore these matters, obviously at a much deeper level. We have 5 hours together, plus a bonus guidance session, and there are materials, replays. So I would love it for any or all of you to attend that workshop, and the link is there for you to register. Direct Path to Happiness. Would love for you to be there. And then my website, if for some reason that's not what you want to do, you can sign up for my email newsletter by just going to my website, and and it goes directly to the website. I mean, the email sign up. And then if you want to email me directly, there's my email. I would love to hear from any of you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with me today and with us today.
Thank you, Peggy. I just constantly find my mind expanding in all our conversations, and I've taken one of your programs that I loved, and your blogs are also mind altering and create an energy of oneness. So I encourage people to sign up for her newsletter and stay connected. So thank you, Peggy.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Loved being here.
Yeah, and Patricia, thank you also for holding the space, and you're going to be even more holding the space next month. Would you tell us about that?
Sure. So on Thursday, June 9th is the Edgewalker Cafe. I'm actually going to be in Ibiza, Spain, with some longtime Maui friends that live in Ibiza now. And Amara Pagano, who has a focus called The Path of Azul, she and her husband partner, Pier Paolo DeAngelis, started something called One Dance Tribe. And I was sort of part of that initially in Maui, but they are literally globally, a lot in Europe, but all over the world, doing dance and conscious movement for healing and manifestation, and et cetera, et cetera. I'll have more in the cafe explanation. They did it all virtually through the pandemic, but they're doing it all over the world. She's dancing with people everywhere. So it's about being embodied, consciousness embodiment, dance, movement, healing, freedom, spirituality, shifting energy. Amazing. And we're going to be staying with them during the time. And I said, well, that would be really interesting. So we're actually going to have a live interview. I'm going to be with her in Ibiza, doing it from Spain, Thursday, June 9th. I don't know exactly the time yet. We're still working that out, but you know, we'll put that in the upcoming announcements. I know in the newsletter on the website, Edgewalkers.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much, and thank you for all your support over all the years. Your Edgewalker workout in the world. So if you want to know more about Edgewalkers, our website is www.edgewalkers.org. And I want to close today by inviting my husband, Ellis Ralph, to help us walk between the worlds with his music. So over to you, Ellis.
Thank you, Peggy. When I was a child, sometimes I loved to slip away from everybody's prying eyes. Alone I'd make my way into the woods, upon the ridge to the very tallest tree, which stood up like a monolith high above the canopy. The beginning was the roughest climb, big branches far apart. It was tough on my body and mind to make it past
the start, but in higher branches, just my size, I'd rise effortlessly. I'd climb so dangerously high. I was the angel on that tree, and I could see clearer and farther than I ever saw before. I could see horizons so bright. Looking back from above, there is so much more I can see rising in the light. Nowadays my getaways are of a different kind. My head and heart can travel in my mind. Meditating, sitting still, I still ascend again. Transcending, if you will, with eyes closed, I still sense I can see. Clearer and farther than I ever saw before, I can see horizons so bright. Looking back from above, there is so much more I can see rising in the light.
Thank you, Ellis. Thank you. And John, I'm sorry you just came in and we're just ending, but you got to hear Ellis sing a little bit. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you June 9th, if not before.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Peggy.
You're welcome.
Ellis. And
Thanks so much.
It's 8:30 here. Was that not the time of the meeting? 8:30 Pacific time?
No, it would have been 7:30.
7:30.
It's been recorded though, so we'll share that with you. I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
thank you. Well, I'm sorry. I guess I misread your notice. Okay, well, anyhow, I'll just claim that 8:30 is a civilized hour on the Pacific Coast, but I'll look into it.
Thank you, everybody.
But my apologies to everyone. I'll be on time next time.
None needed. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.